May 1963, RCA Studio B in Nashville. Elvis Presley walks into the building with a stack of sheet music he's barely seen before. The songs are written for a movie he hasn't filmed yet. A movie with a plot so thin it requires him to play two characters, twin cousins, just to generate conflict. He has 3 days to record an entire album. Not 3 weeks, not 3 sessions spread across a month. 3 days, 72 hours to deliver a complete soundtrack that will accompany a film already greenlit, already scheduled, already promoted. This isn't how records are supposed to be made. Not by someone who once spent months perfecting Heartbreak Hotel, not by an artist who revolutionized popular music by caring deeply about every vocal inflection, every rebellious sneer. But something has shifted. Elvis is no longer operating in the world of music. He's operating in the world of product. The clock is already running. By 1963, Elvis Presley is trapped in a machine of his own success. Colonel Tom Parker, his manager, has engineered a system that prints money, 3 films per year, each accompanied by a soundtrack album. The formula is ruthlessly efficient. Movies get made quickly and cheaply. Albums get recorded faster. Both generate revenue streams that dwarf traditional touring. The numbers are impossible to ignore. Elvis's films, even mediocre ones, reliably turn profits. Soundtrack albums sell to fans who will buy anything with his name attached. Parker has turned Elvis into a brand that manufactures product, and Kissin' Cousins is simply the next item on the assembly line. But there's a deeper pressure at work. MGM has allocated just $800,000 for the entire production, a budget so tight it demands speed at every level. The studio needs the soundtrack finished before principal photography wraps because they can't afford delays. Time is money, and MGM isn't spending either. Kissin' Cousins casts Elvis as both Josh Morgan, a dark-haired Air Force officer, and Jodie Tatum, a blonde hillbilly moonshiner. The plot involves the military trying to build a missile base on Smoky Mountain land owned by feuding relatives. It's absurd enough that even the studio knows it needs Elvis playing dual roles just to hold attention. Here's what makes the pressure real. If Elvis pushes back, if he demands more time or better material, the entire production schedule collapses. Contracts are signed, release dates are set, theater chains are waiting. So Kissin' Cousins had to exist because the machine demanded it, and because Elvis had already agreed to be the machine's most essential part. The songs arrive, and nobody in the room pretends they're good. Kissin' Cousins, number 2, the title track, is a rockabilly novelty about kissing relatives. Barefoot Ballad leans into folk stereotypes. Pappy, Won't You Please Come Home tries for Appalachian charm but lands closer to caricature. Elvis picks up the lead sheets and something changes in his posture. Not anger, not even disappointment. Just a kind of professional resignation that's somehow worse than both. The musicians gathering at RCA Studio B, guitarists Grady Martin and Harold Bradley, drummer DJ Fontana, the Jordanaires on backing vocals, are Nashville's elite. They've backed everyone from Patsy Cline to Roy Orbison. They know quality when they hear it. This isn't it. But here's the shift that matters. For the first time in Elvis's career, the people in the room realize they're being asked to execute, not create. The energy that usually fills recording sessions, the spontaneous runs, the playful experimentation, the moment when everyone feels something click, is absent. Elvis runs through Kissin' Cousins, number 2, on the second take, and it's technically flawless. Perfect pitch, perfect timing, perfect emptiness. DJ Fontana, who's drummed on every great Elvis record since 1954, later recalls the session with careful diplomacy. But the subtext is clear. This is the first time Elvis realizes no one in the room needs him to care, just to perform. The collision happens in silence. There's no shouting match between Elvis and his producer Fred Karger. No dramatic walkout. No heated phone call with Colonel Parker demanding better material. Instead, there's a more insidious kind of conflict. The complete absence of resistance. On one side sits the Hollywood production model, which treats soundtracks as deliverable assets with fixed deadlines and minimal budgets. Kissin' Cousins needs 12 songs. They have 3 days. Simple math. On the other side sits what's left of Elvis's artistic instinct. The part of him that once fought studio executives, that demanded 31 takes of Hound Dog because the energy wasn't right, that believed music should mean something. That part loses without a fight. The Jordanaires deliver their harmonies on Tender Feeling in one take. The band nails Barefoot Ballad on the second pass. Karger keeps sessions moving with military efficiency, checking songs off a list like inventory. Everyone does their job perfectly. That's the tragedy. There's a moment during the recording of Once Is Enough, a ballad that could have been something if given time, where Elvis pauses between takes. Just for a second. Like he's about to say something, to push for another approach, to suggest they try it a different way. Then he glances at the clock, at the schedule sheet on the music stand, at the stack of remaining songs. He goes again. Same arrangement, same delivery. The version that makes the album is technically proficient and emotionally inert. It sounds exactly like what it is, a talented singer fulfilling a contractual obligation. By the end of day 2, they've recorded 9 songs. Everyone agrees the pace is impressive. Nobody mentions what's being sacrificed for that efficiency. The sessions conclude in May 1963. Elvis leaves Nashville with a completed album, 12 tracks recorded, vocals laid down, mixing finalized. The machine has worked exactly as designed. But something has fundamentally shifted in Elvis's relationship with his music, and everyone around him can see it. Before Kissin' Cousins, there were still moments where Elvis could pretend the Hollywood soundtracks were temporary detours. That eventually he'd return to making records that mattered. That Colonel Parker's formula was just a phase maximizing income before an inevitable return to serious work. After these 3 days, that pretense becomes impossible to maintain. The point of no return isn't a single dramatic moment. It's the quiet acceptance that this is the new normal. 3 films per year. 3 soundtracks per year. Minimal rehearsal time. Material chosen for commercial viability, not artistic merit. Speed over soul, every single time. What makes this moment particularly devastating is that the system works. The album gets delivered on schedule. MGM is satisfied. RCA is satisfied. Colonel Parker is satisfied. The only person who might not be satisfied is Elvis. And by 1963, his satisfaction is the least important variable in the equation. Friends close to him notice the change. The spark that once defined his performances is dimming. He's not burned out in any obvious way. He still shows up, still does the work, still collects the checks. But something essential has been lost in that Nashville studio. The belief that his artistry matters more than his punctuality. March 1964. Kissin' Cousins, number 2, hits radio as the lead single. The reception is polite. It climbs to number 12 on the Billboard Hot 100, respectable by most standards, but a distant echo of Elvis's dominance just a few years earlier. For context, the Beatles currently occupy the top 5 positions on the same chart. Can't Buy Me Love, Twist and Shout, She Loves You, I Want to Hold Your Hand, and Please Please Me. 5 slots, 1 band, a complete cultural takeover. Elvis, once the voice of rebellion, now sounds like establishment entertainment playing in the background. The Kissin' Cousins soundtrack album, released by RCA Victor in April 1964, reaches number 6 on the Billboard 200, solid commercial performance, perfectly adequate returns on a minimal investment. The film itself opens to reviews that are brutal in their indifference. The New York Times notes the movie's remarkable lack of imagination. Critics struggle to take seriously a film where Elvis plays dual roles, differentiated primarily by hair color and accent. But audiences show up anyway. The movie makes $2.8 million on an $800,000 budget, a textbook success by Hollywood standards. This is the moment where everyone's worst predictions are confirmed. The formula works. Cut corners, reduce budgets, minimize artistic risk, and the returns remain consistent. Elvis's name alone guarantees profitability regardless of quality. For MGM and RCA, Kissin' Cousins validates an entire business model. For anyone who cares about Elvis as an artist rather than a brand, it's confirmation that the machine has won. The success of the Kissin' Cousins formula becomes its own punishment. When something makes money in Hollywood, it doesn't just get repeated, it gets accelerated. Colonel Parker sees the soundtrack's performance and the film's profitability as proof that his system is too efficient to abandon. Why invest more time, money, or creative energy when the current approach generates reliable returns with minimal risk? Over the next 4 years, Elvis will make 21 more films. Most follow the Kissin' Cousins template exactly. Lightweight plots, compressed production schedules, soundtracks recorded in days rather than weeks. Girl Happy, Tickle Me, Harem Scarum, Clambake. The titles blur together into an indistinguishable mass of beach parties and forgettable melodies. Between 1960 and 1968, Elvis will release 24 soundtrack albums. That's an average of 3 per year, every year, with the same speed and efficiency that defined Kissin' Cousins. For Elvis personally, the consequences are quieter but more corrosive. Red West, Elvis's longtime friend and bodyguard, later recalls watching Elvis grow increasingly disconnected during this period. Not depressed exactly, but resigned. The movies feel like obligations. The soundtracks feel like assembly line labor. There's no public breakdown, no dramatic rebellion. Just the slow erosion of the artistic identity that made Elvis Presley revolutionary in the first place. And the industry watches closely. If Elvis, the most significant figure in rock and roll history, can be reduced to a content provider without losing his commercial viability, what does that mean for every other artist? The lesson is clear. Artistry is optional. Punctuality is mandatory. For years, Kissin' Cousins exists as a punchline in Elvis's filmography, shorthand for his Hollywood period at its most compromised, but distance changes perspective. By the 1980s, music historians examining Elvis's career begin recognizing Kissin' Cousins not for its artistic merit, but for what it reveals about the industrial pressures facing major artists. The 3-day recording schedule becomes a symbol of how commerce overwhelms creativity when systems prioritize efficiency over everything else. Rockabilly revivalists discover Kissin' Cousins number 2. And embrace it ironically at first, then genuinely. The song's cartoonish quality, once seen as a weakness, becomes part of its period charm. Bands like the Stray Cats and the Reverend Horton Heat cover it, reclaiming the track as a cultural artifact rather than an artistic statement. Cultural critics begin using Kissin' Cousins as a case study in artistic compromise, not to condemn Elvis but to examine the systems that trapped him. Essays appear analyzing how even the most powerful artists can be reduced to cogs in commercial machinery if the financial incentives align correctly. Elvis impersonators make the dual-role concept from the film a staple of tribute shows, recognizing it as distinctly representative of his movie star era's absurdity and excess. The reassessment doesn't rescue the album's reputation. No one argues Kissin' Cousins is a lost masterpiece or secretly brilliant. Instead, it becomes something more valuable, an honest document of what happens when talent meets a system designed to extract maximum output with minimum input. A reminder that even revolutionaries can be ground down by machinery they helped build. The real legacy of Kissin' Cousins isn't the album itself, it's what comes after. By 1968, Elvis has spent nearly a decade trapped in the system Kissin' Cousins exemplified. 27 films, countless soundtrack albums, a fortune earned and a reputation eroded. Then something breaks. Elvis stages what becomes the '68 Comeback Special, a television performance where he returns to performing live in black leather, channeling the raw energy that made him dangerous in 1956. The special isn't just a performance, it's a rejection of everything the movie soundtracks represented. During rehearsals, Elvis tells producer Steve Binder he's tired of the movies, tired of the soundtracks, tired of being treated like a commodity. He doesn't specifically mention Kissin' Cousins, but the frustration is obvious. This is his chance to reclaim what the assembly line took from him. The comeback leads directly to From Elvis in Memphis, 1969, an album recorded with time, care, and emotional investment. Songs like In the Ghetto and Suspicious Minds prove Elvis still has the capacity for meaningful work when given the space to create rather than execute. But here's what the comeback also reveals. The damage from the Kissin' Cousins era is permanent. Elvis gets his artistic credibility back, but he never fully escapes the image of the movie star years. For millions of people, especially younger audiences, Elvis is the guy from the silly beach movies, not the revolutionary who threatened the establishment. The shadow extends beyond Elvis individually. The rapid production model that defined his soundtrack era becomes a blueprint, sometimes cautionary, sometimes aspirational, for how the music industry treats major artists. Today's streaming-driven demand for constant releases, the pressure on artists to drop new songs every few months, the prioritization of quantity over quality, all of it echoes the system that gave us Kissin' Cousins. The tension between artistic integrity and commercial efficiency never resolves. It just evolves into new forms, with new artists, facing the same fundamental choice. Do you make what matters, or do you make what's due? Kissin' Cousins isn't remembered as great music. It's remembered as the moment Elvis Presley became a cautionary tale. The album teaches us that talent doesn't protect artists from commercial machinery. Elvis could sing circles around his contemporaries in 1963. His voice remained technically perfect throughout those Nashville sessions. But technical perfection means nothing when the material doesn't warrant investment. It teaches us that success can be a trap more effective than failure. The Kissin' Cousins model worked financially, which meant it got repeated until it nearly destroyed the artist who made it possible. Sometimes the most dangerous thing for a creative person is a formula that makes money. It teaches us about the hidden cost of speed. 72 hours to record an album isn't inherently wrong. Punk rock and hip-hop have created masterpieces under similar constraints, but those artists chose speed as an aesthetic. Elvis had speed imposed on him as an economic necessity. One is a creative decision, the other is industrial exploitation. Most importantly, Kissin' Cousins teaches us that artistic legacy isn't linear. Elvis's Hollywood period, once dismissed as simple commercial compromise, now looks more complicated. We can see the human being trapped inside the icon, trying to balance competing obligations, making choices that seemed reasonable at the time but accumulated into something soul-crushing. The album exists now as a reminder that every artist, no matter how significant, is vulnerable to the systems they inhabit. That commercial viability and artistic integrity don't naturally align. That the music industry's default setting is efficiency, not excellence. And that sometimes the most important question isn't whether you can create something in 3 days. It's whether anyone remembers why they wanted it in the first place.